Hello, Fairfield. You are watching yet another exciting episode of Fairfield 2.0, and today we have a very tasty episode, you might say. We have Steve Boss, who has an amazing show called Great Taste over on solar-powered Crew FM. He's one of the show hosts, and also he's just his knowledge of food and the culinary arts is amazing. And this is going to be a musicless show, but not to worry. We'll make up for it with all the cool talk about food that we've got going on today. Steve, I love your show. It has been really great. I've been one of the people who show up at Crew, and of course, as you know, and you know, I weasel little tastes because you do give little tastes of things that you cook on the air with chefs and students from Indian Hills. But let's start from the beginning. What got you interested in food?
I think that my interest in food started very, very young, just like most people's. They're hungry. And what I really got interested in food was being able to enjoy my grandmother's cooking. My mom was a great cook, is a great cook, but my grandmother was my inspiration always. And it's funny because food memories are, I think they're some of the deepest things that we have ingrained in our consciousness. And my grandmother, she was from Poland, and she was Eastern European Jewish. And one of the things that she made was absolutely my favorite thing, and it was called gribben. Gribben is chicken fat, chicken skin, essentially. Chicken skin, fried crisp. Probably we have something like that here in this country, too. What comes to mind is chitlins. I'm not sure what those are, but I think it might have something like that.
In the pork rind family.
Right, might be in the pork rind, right. So this is chicken skin, fried with onions, till it's really crisp and little bites, right?
You had me at onions. Whatever comes later doesn't matter.
Just unbelievable. And it's fried in chicken fat, and then you take the chicken fat afterwards and you have schmaltz. That's what, you would use that to cook other foods in. So it was all really edible, and the remains after the schmaltz were these really wonderfully well done onions and crispy chicken skin bites. And that was just something that I adored. And I could walk into her apartment or her house later on, and I would know immediately, just by the smell, if she had been frying and making that. And what I got a kick out of, and I don't think my brother or sister are ever going to see this, was that she would always hide the stuff from me. She would keep it for me. And if they were going to be around, she would always take part of it and put it aside and say, this is all there was. And
sorry, kids. Steve, come here, Steve.
Really? So it was my little special treat. And I used to it was just great. And so she was my inspiration. I can still, if I close my eyes, Mike, I can just think of the different dishes that she would make, and I can taste them on my tongue. And anybody can do this. It's not a special trait.
Right.
If you do it yourself, some type of, what kind of food memory do you have that's so special to you?
My food memories is my father. When it comes to my grandparents, they made some of the, actually I don't have good food memories. I have things like, they made things like uche. And it was like uche with these little, what I thought as a kid was like baby chickens. Baby chickens. Then I find out later it's pigeon. I'm like, oh my God.
They got right off on the rooftop,
pigeons.
Right?
Yeah. No, and they used to breed, remember in old New York, they used to have those pigeon coops on top of, virtually every brownstone.
Sure.
Or what became tenements. So, oh my God, when I was so repulsed later on when I found out. And I wasn't too much older. I was like maybe 7, 8 when I found that out, and I never ate another thing at my grandparents' house. But my father, my food memories with my father are he made this incredible spinach salad with olive oil. It was cold spinach with olive oil after it was cooked and chopped. Olive oil, garlic, and that might have been it. And of course, salt and pepper.
Maybe a little mustard.
No mustard in this at all. It was beautiful. That's one of my favorite memories. And he made an incredible potato salad, and he made the best. Oh my gosh, he made the best turkey stuffing. You're not supposed to do this anymore. You're not supposed to be putting. I guess you're not supposed to be putting stuffing inside the bird anymore.
Right.
But that combination of things is amazing. And my stepmother, his current wife, once told me. She said, you know what, if your father goes, he's taking that stuffing recipe with him because he won't show me. And it's true.
You're bringing up something really interesting.
And by the way, I was going to ask you, did you learn how to cook? Did your grandmother teach you how to cook those dishes because she knew you loved them so much?
She never taught me how to do it. I would just watch her.
Yeah.
And so I learned from watching her. But she had one dish. This is perfect. It goes along with your story. She had one dish that was called simmus, which was a carrot casserole, basically. And she never shared the recipe with my mother, and she didn't share it with any of us. And my mother's tried to duplicate it many, many times and never been able to do it. And it's so sad because it was just outrageous. And I've tasted other people's simmus casseroles before. Nothing like my grandmother's, and lost. And I think that it's a really great, as far as food is concerned, it's what I am. It's what I'm composed of, is everything about food. And I feel like it's a really important thing to study the traditions that we have from our parents, our grandparents, and their parents, and hopefully maintain those and make sure that nobody loses that, especially in this age of frozen food and microwave food and everything prepared already, to be able to really just be able to savor the traditions that our ancestors had.
I think of it as like the DNA getting passed down. There are certain things that get passed down, and that recipes is just one of those things you would logically think that, it's like, okay, here, let me teach you how to do this. And you know what, we were talking about, before we started recording the show, we talked about oral tradition. It seems like, okay, maybe not so much an oral tradition of passing the thing down. It's like, come here, let me teach you how to do it. But it would be the kid observing intensely that they would learn the recipes.
Or there's lots of examples. Jessica Thoreau, who's been a guest on the show
on Great Taste.
Yes, several times. She wrote a book last year that it was actually 2010 now, I think, and it was ICAP award winner, International Association of Cooking Professionals award winner. It's called Cooking with Italian Grandmothers. And she went and she just watched, observed, and had these grandmothers in different regions of Italy preparing traditional dishes that they would make for their families, and then she included those recipes. But now there's a record, and she actually did several short films of those grandmothers. So all that has a great place in maintaining tradition and also maintaining flavor profiles and so many wonderful experiences that really can't be captured again if we lose them that way. Yeah, sure, you can do something different, but today it's so many of the food memories that people are excited about are kind of strange to me. They're like, one of the kids was talking, one of the Indian Hills culinary students, because they have a culinary program at Indian Hills.
And you have them often on your program,
yes,
don't
they're
you?
on once a month, right. And one of the kids who did an internship in Spain at a one-star Michelin restaurant, and then he is going to go to a restaurant in Chicago, and one of the restaurants in Chicago, the one that he's going to, they're really into all kinds of it's called I'm forgetting what it's called right now, but it's high tech molecular gastronomy. That's what it is.
Molecular gastronomy.
Molecular gastronomy.
Nice.
So they're really into that. And one of the things that they have done in the past is they give you something to chew. And I don't really know the exact nature of this, but it's something to chew that changes then the flavor profile of whatever food you eat for a certain period of time. Wow. Then, so this is what.
Well, isn't that the secret of ginger with sushi and all that? You're supposed to take a bit of ginger in order to change to clean the palate in order to get ready for the next taste of expensive sushi.
Totally different type of thing. Cleansing the palate, completely different. We're talking about, Mike. This is really bizarre. Actually,
this is setting up
we're talking about,
your
for
body
example,
being able to
your body to actually be told that this is something is sweet when it really isn't, or this is salty and it really isn't. And this is the kind of thing that is fascinating. It's captivated a lot of the culinary world right now, where people have these experiences where they go to these very high-end restaurants that are into molecular gastronomy, and they have taste and smell sensations. Like, for example, they'll bring something to the table that's covered, and then they'll uncover it, and these, this steam will come out, and you're supposed to smell it. And it just, to me, that's an interesting evening. Yeah. That's what it is. And I have experienced it. I've been to Per Se in New York, which is maybe not quite as crazy in terms of the molecular gastronomical experience, but they do a lot of molecular gastronomy. And that's the way I felt. It was delicious food. It was interesting. It was fascinating, really. Yeah. But did it capture my soul? not at all.
But some of the dishes that came out. Well, right now we're going through this phase, like especially in New York, where it seems like there are, like with the restaurant Home, and there are places like that where it seems like a return or a trying to return to home cooked values or some of the tastes that you would have in a home cooked meal. But on the other hand, they have to justify why you're paying so much money when you go to the restaurant, so it has to be a little more, involved.
Well, there are I mean, if you go to New York, you're going to see every trend that is and every trend that hasn't happened yet, and some that shouldn't ever happen, and maybe won't.
What are one or two of those?
Well, one of the new ones is grilled pizza. That's a real big thing in New York right now, and that's great. You say, well, grilled pizza. Oh, wow. How many people have had grilled pizza? You can do it at home, and certainly there are lots of recipes for it, but I don't think most people do.
Yeah.
And so now some pizza places have sprung up that's their specialty is grilled pizza.
Grilled pizza. What is grilled pizza?
Well, so you're basically grilling it on a charcoal grill as opposed to baking it in an oven, whether it's coal fired or whether it's gas or whatever. You're grilling the pizza, so it's imparting some of that type of grill flavor,
the smoky
smokiness,
coal.
and everything. And so everything that goes on top and the different ingredients are all planned to go along with that, enhance that type of experience. So I think that's kind of an interesting experience. Of course, molecular gastronomy is a big thing that's continuing to expand in New York right now and in other places, not just New York. And I think another thing that's really, Spanish cuisine has just really exploded over the last number of years. And some of the top restaurants in the world now are in Spain. And that all has been catapulted and driven by the molecular gastronomy, because Ferran Adria, who's one of the greatest chefs in the world, that's how he rose to that level in terms of his reputation.
Right.
Came from how he manipulated the food in terms of molecular gastronomical means, I guess you'd say. Yeah. And in addition to that, there are numerous places. I think the number one restaurant ranked in the world the last couple of years has been in Norway. And you say, Norway? And this guy is working with all kinds of things that nobody's ever heard of because they're indigenous to Norway. He's out there foraging so many different types of plants and.
Well, what do we think of when we think of that? We think of fish.
That's all I think of. I'm sorry, I don't know much.
And then Norway, and maybe not so much Norway, but the Scandinavia. Don't we also get French fries dipped in mayonnaise? That's the
I think about that as Belgium. Generally.
That's mainly Belgium?
Well, that's where I think about it from.
Okay.
Because that's the first time I ever saw it was on the streets in Brussels.
Oh,
and I was like, what?
So let's go there. You've traveled the world and you've tasted dishes here and there. Tell us a couple of adventures. What is your favorite? Let's start there. What is your favorite adventure as far as your culinary sojourns?
I mean, it's an interesting question. I wish I had traveled the world. I've been fortunate to spend a bunch of time in Europe.
Hey, if you've been to Europe, you traveled the world. Yeah. In my speak.
Well, that's wonderful. And I have to say that the most intimate and wonderful experiences I've ever had in terms of food are in people's homes. Restaurants are great, but having somebody invite you to their home, cook something for you that is important and special to them for whatever reason, whether it comes from their heritage or whether it's just something that they do well or it's something that their family likes. It's just being at their table, having the conversations, and spending 3-4 hours sitting around and enjoying that company. I would say to anyone who has the ability to travel and gets to go to Europe, that right now there's a project in Italy. It's called Cesarine. And what that is about is allowing people to be able to go to homes and experience this thing. Wow. In other words, instead of going to a restaurant, you can go to someone's home and they'll cook for you and serve you the foods that are important to them.
Beautiful.
So that's something you could look up online.
Cesarine.
It's Ceaserine, I think. Cesarine. Nice. And it's home cooked meals, and they're doing it in many different areas in Italy right now. There's a lot of older women. I shouldn't say elderly. Older women, maybe some men, but mostly older women whose homes are available for you to come and experience that. And so that's great. So those are the experiences in people's homes, and I can tell you some things if you think that people would be interested.
Oh, please, no. Well, this is beautiful.
Just a couple.
For instance, I would love a story.
I'll give you two.
Yeah.
One is particularly wrenching to me, and that is that we were invited to the home of a friend of ours in just outside of Rome. And Christina is from Napoli.
Christina.
Right. And her husband Piero. And the best, most amazing buffalo mozzarella. So that's mozzarella di bufala. This is mozzarella that's made from water buffalo milk, not cow's milk. Very rich, delicious. It's made in one area around Caserta in Campania, in Italy. And so what happens is, for us, was that there is a place outside of Rome, just outside of Rome, where they truck in milk from Caserta every morning, and then they make the mozzarella di bufala right there. Yeah. So that's the closest I've ever gotten to experience fresh buffalo mozzarella. And I've always wanted it. One of the things I've always wanted to do for years was have that experience, because I remember reading an article in a cooking magazine, Saveur, where this guy was saying, "Oh, if you can't eat it within 3 to 4 hours, it's worthless. Don't bother." And so it's like, okay, whatever. I'm lucky to get it after a week here. So, but there I was able to get it immediately after it was made, not right on the farm, but just a couple hours away, after it was trucked over there. So, two things happened at this first meal. One was that Christina made eggplant parmesan.
My favorite Italian dish, by the way.
Unreal. I mean, just melt in your mouth, delicious, with this fresh mozzarella in it. And the other thing was that she served, so my wife and I were there, one of the things that she did was she served the mozzarella separate as an appetizer type of thing. And they were little rounds, right? And Rachel and I cut one of the rounds. It was, when I say round, it was a ball,
Yeah.
And we cut one of the balls, and we ate half of it. To this day, that was at least 10 years ago.
And was it the buffalo?
This is the buffalo mozzarella. And to this day, we will look at each other when that comes up and we'll go, "Why didn't we each just eat the whole one?"
I was like, be polite and have one. What is this?
Exactly. So the second time that we went to Christina and Piero's for a meal, our daughter was with us. And I knew that Christina was going to make eggplant parmesan. I also know that Rebecca doesn't like eggplant at all. It's one of the very few foods that she just can't stand. But out of politeness, she's going to eat this, right? So we eat. It's wonderful. I noticed there's 2 pieces left. So Christina, and as all good hosts, would you like some more? Would you like some more? And as people do in Italy, or we do, is like, "Oh, no. And as Christina would say, "Oh, please, have some more, so ask again." By the way, that's not the same in every country.
No.
A friend of Rebecca's actually told us that, and I don't know if this is normal in Germany or if it just happened to be the house that her friend was in, but she went and visited a family in Germany and was asked if she wanted more, and she said no, because she was being polite.
Right.
They took it away, and that was it. Right.
We want a straight answer.
Exactly. So anyway, Christina asked Rebecca, "Oh, no, I can't possibly have any more. Thank you so much. It was delicious. It was wonderful, and I'm making out right." And anyway, Christina says, "Oh, you have to have a little bit more. You have to." And Rebecca goes, "Okay." And I'm thinking to myself, oh my gosh, there's 2 pieces left, and my daughter is taking one of those pieces of the most delicious eggplant parmesan in the world, and she doesn't even like eggplant parmesan, and I know she's only doing it. I don't know this, actually. I'm thinking maybe she liked it. I came to find out later she was only doing it to be polite. Right. And I said, "Please never do anything like that again. Are you crazy?" So I had to split the other piece with Piero. So anyway, that was one.
Yes, food can drive big divisions within families.
I'll tell you.
I love that. I love that story. I also love the fact that just the dedication when you're talking about. I'm salivating through this whole conversation. I really am, and I'm. You can hear him swallowing every other line. I wish you are enjoying this tour of food, and I mean tour of food in the bigger sense. As in, this is your mission. You love food. You have your show Great Taste, and all of these different dishes that you serve up over there. You really, I watch you. You are having a great time as as we shove the on those little hot plates. Well, and the Indian Hills chefs or whoever you have who's making the stuff is in there. This is like the time of your life. This is the hour of your life where it's like you get to share, and you get to share your joy. You get to share your love with Fairfield. And I want to know, how did you, we've got the story, we got the idea of how much you love food and how you sort of, you've been doing this, but how did you start your show, Great Taste on Crew, and how did it evolve into what it is now, which is half the town coming to the station to have samples of your delicacies over there?
I don't even remember. It was about 5 years ago now. And I think that what happened is Lonnie Gamble was doing a show on Crew. It was shortly after Crew started. Yeah. And Lonnie was doing a show, and he had some friends who were doing another show. And it was sort of like, if I recall the instance, like, we can't commit to doing it once a week because it's a lot of work. So how about if you do a show on food, and then we'll do every 3 weeks. Each of us will do a show. It was something very innocuous like that. Yeah. And I thought, oh, that's great. I used to be in radio, love radio, and thought, what could be better than this, than actually doing food? So we hook up the studio. We turn it into a little makeshift kitchen. Which is ironic because in that Studio A, there's a no food policy. That's right. The hosts can't bring in food except for Wednesdays. Right. But keep going. I'm sorry. Well, so that was it, and it's evolved since. After a while, we started going weekly, and I was lucky to have my co-host Kathy Dubois for quite a while. Who we like to. She's a great cook, terrific home cook, and has a lot of knowledge, and we have a really great repartee together. Yeah. Is that repartee or repartee? Repartee. Oh, okay. Repartee. Thank you. Just like you and I, Mike. Like just right now. Right, exactly. Actually, we do have a good repartee. Yes, I love it. I love you. This guy has hawked my interview show on Crew more than he talks about his food sometimes. I love that. And then also when I'm in the room weaseling some great tastes on Great Taste, you'll not only be plugging the shows, but you'll say, "Hey, Mike, so what do you think of this?" Whatever. And I really appreciate it. I love that. It's a fun opportunity. I would love it for more people to know about the show because it really gives them an opportunity to experience probably some foods that they may not necessarily be familiar with, right, and some that they are familiar with. For example, this particular week we're doing foods that I think most people are familiar with. Well, some actually, not all. We're doing grits. I mean, if you're from the South, grits. Yeah. Grits, when I went to, grits. Me being from the Northeast, I'm a big fan of grits. No, what happened was I lived in Nashville for a while, and there were grits. Sure. And and they were the greasiest, slimiest things I saw there. And then somebody said to me, "Oh no, you're going to love them, have it. Michael, you got to try this." So I did, and it was like, oh my God, I've discovered grits. And when I'm in the South, if I have a choice between home fries, which they sort of don't have. It's not a really big. They don't push that as much. It's grits is a lot of times a side dish. But let's go back to, you said we're bringing it into the present now, and you have a show. Well, obviously Great Taste, but the show has made it over to Hy-Vee's now. Yes. And now, where we used to maybe have some problems fitting all the people in Crew, you'd have all the people lining up around in the booth. Now, I've come to a few of these, and we're starting to fill up a room. You're starting to have like the call is out, the casting call is out, and I believe that's one of the ways that people are going to get into this even more. Is that you have to? I'll put it out there right now. You have to come down to Hy-Vee Wednesday nights at 8 o'clock. 7. That's Wednesday nights at 7 o'clock, like I said, but the show goes over 8 a lot of times because people are still eating. They're like everybody's hanging. But this show go into the evolution of how you went from Crew now to expanding into Hy-Vee, which by the way also the show is broadcast on Crew. But my recommendation is please go down to Crew. It's in the side room, and I'll have you describe this. But you should show up because not only does the food taste great, but it's also a cool little social event. You're going to meet a lot of people that also are into food. In this town, and now I will shut up and Steve, talk about the show. It was kind of a natural evolution when the new Hy-Vee food store was built. They built a club room, kitchen lab, I like to say. Kitchen lab. But officially it's known as a club room, and it holds about 50 people, I think. And they have a full kitchen in there. They have 2 ovens. They have a whole cooktop. Got a refrigerator, dishwasher, everything that you would need. And this is where I remember the wine club was in there, and the cheese club, and things like that. Right, and they hold dinners in there. And they have dinners, yeah. They have dinners once a month, I think, in there. And so we just discussed, James Moore, the station manager, and myself, we discussed with the director of the store the possibility of doing the show live from there, and he thought it was a great idea. And so we've done 2 shows. The third one's tonight,
Nice.
actually, which isn't tonight because I'm not sure when this is going to air.
but if it's Wednesday that this is showing, head on down.
Now, I will say, though, what you should do if you're interested is you should look at the crew webpage.
There you go.
Because we are not necessarily there every Wednesday night. Because some Wednesdays I happen to be out of town, so we're playing a rebroadcast. I know. So we're playing a rebroadcast, and other times we still want to do some shows in the studio. We don't want to run all the way away from crew. So, but whenever this show is going to air, I don't know. But let me just give the next 2 dates.
We don't know either, by the way.
Oh, we don't know? Oh, okay. Well,
it'll be in the near future.
If it's the 18th,
Jason Strong, he's nodding yes. Okay, great.
If it's before the 18th of July, we will be live at Hy-Vee on the 18th of July, and also on the 25th, we're scheduled to be there. But the best thing is to check the crew homepage and look for the blog post and make sure we're there before you come by. But it's a lot of fun, and just as you said, Mike, it's a social event.
It is.
From 7 to 8, we do the show, and then we continue with more cooking and questions and answers.
And there's so much education that goes on during your show. For instance, while the chefs are making, and I got to bring the Indian Hills kids into this at some point. We have to talk about those kids because they are amazing. But you'll have like a main chef or whoever overseeing it, and they're educating. You're talking about the recipe, but you're also talking about sort of like what we're doing now. You're talking about the history of the food and etc. Who are some of your? Let's do this. Who are some of your main chefs that come in there? And I've seen a few.
I think that really until we moved the show to Hy-Vee, we were very much involved with the telephone interview.
Yes.
That was what we did most
right.
of the time because, frankly, I don't know if you know this or not, but Fairfield may be the crossroads of our universe, but it doesn't seem to be on the flight plans for most celebrity chefs or...
What?
Yeah, I know. It's hard to believe. So from that vantage point, we have to take advantage of talking to authors, journalists, farmers, other producers of food, on the telephone for the most part. Right. Now that we're at Hy-Vee, we need to really have a lot more going on in addition to, if we're going to do a phone interview, we have to have something happening live.
Yeah.
Because even though we cooked in the studio when we talked to people on the phone, it still wasn't really done with a theatrical bent in mind.
Right. Whereas now, it is almost a performance artist.
Right. It has to be more like that. It doesn't have to be, certainly doesn't have to override what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
But there has to be some type of performance art involved in it.
Well, let me tell you, the guy who was here, the Indian Hills, the main chef, the guy who went to, I guess he studied in Spain for a while and then came back, and you got to go into that story. That kid was amazing. He held the room, and he wasn't working the room. It was just, as he spoke with such authority and some of the memories. It was like, when he got off the show, it could be he goes home and he's, glued to ESPN all night. It's like he's one of those, he was just a regular guy. I'm really impressed with him. Could you go into who the whole relationship with Indian Hills?
Sure. Indian Hills, I think people might know, or maybe they don't. Indian Hills has a culinary program. Right. Now, it used to be maybe 6, 7, 8 years ago. I'm not sure how many years ago. It used to be what was technically called a box program.
A box program?
Yeah, a box program, which is you open the box, you add some water, and you stir, or you put it in the oven for a little while, and there you are. But about 5 or 6 years ago, Indian Hills hired Chef Gordon Rader to come and be the director of the program. And Chef changed the program to a French technique program, very rigorous program, and he's turning out some high-class chefs now. And it's not an easy thing for him, because he's challenging the eating habits of everyone, not only in Southeast Iowa, but around the state.
It's amazing that they got him.
Yes, it is amazing that they got him.
Was there a little incentive there?
I'm certain that he could continued to have made more money outside of it, but he'd been cooking for 35 years or so, or maybe more, in various positions all over the world, actually. And I think he wanted to give back. He wanted to work with youth and educate them. Yeah. And he has made a huge difference, I believe, to the entire food culture of Southeast Iowa. And he has started some projects, for example, a new project that will manifest sometime next year, I think, in downtown Ottumwa, where there's going to be an entire building, abandoned building that's being reconstructed inside. It's going to have an indoor market. It's going to have vendors. It's going to have little artisan shops that have to do with food. And he was the one who spearheaded all those efforts to raise the money to get the grants behind it and everything. So he likes to say that he won't be satisfied until he completely starts a revolution in food in Southeast Iowa. And he says,
Southeast Iowa.
Right, and he says, and this is fair to say, he said, you know what? You can love pork. There's no reason not to love pork, but you don't have to have it at every meal. Mm-hmm. And that's just, it's kind of a funny thing.
Yeah.
And these kids who have come into his program, many of them haven't experienced any other types of food other than, we'll say, the meat and potatoes kind of thing that is so prevalent in the Midwest, not just in Iowa, but in the Midwest.
Right.
And to see these kids blossom as I have, not as much as he has, but as I have, is really inspirational, to the point that very shortly, I think, in town here, you'll probably find some people who have graduated from that Indian Hills program that are involved in new restaurant venues here in town. I don't know if it'll happen tomorrow, but it'll happen shortly.
Right, nice.
And he has kids cooking in high-level restaurants now in different parts of the United States, on cruise ships, that type of thing. So nice. It's a great program, and it's very inspirational for me to have been. I've been over there numerous times and worked with the kids. And so at some point, Chef and I started talking, and I said, hey, I'd like to just dedicate 1 week a month of the show for your kids to come and show off what they can do.
Yeah.
And so we've been doing that for, it's getting, I think, about 2 years now. And I'm really excited about the show on the 18th, which may or may not have happened when this airs. But
Jason, let's see if we can slip this into the mix.
But I'm very excited because you were talking about Nathaniel, who had returned from Spain.
And he knew more than how to cook paella.
He knew a lot more than just paella, right? Because he was actually working at a very high-end restaurant in Spain. And just over the weekend, this past weekend, 9 of the students came back from 2 weeks in Spain, and they're going to show off their skills at Hy-Vee on the 18th from 7 to 8 p.m. when we do Great Taste. So.
Nice. And you're a fan right now. This is a Spanish food phase that we're going through.
Well, Chef really has a passion for Spanish food. He has a passion for all kinds of food, but he has a passion for Spain. He speaks Spanish, and he loves their cuisine, and he loves their lifestyle and that type of thing. So he gets his kids twice a year. They go over to Spain for exchange. They do go other places too, but this is something I think that is really special for him.
You have to forgive me. I'm salivating all over.
Yeah, it's easy to do, especially when you talk about food. And we do. What's funny is that when we do Great Taste, one of the things that you know about radio, and I'm sure it's TV, you don't eat before shows because you don't want to salivate. You don't want to do that. We eat on the show. I mean, come on. I mean, it's a food show.
As you're eating, as you're cooking, you have to taste a little this, taste a little of that. One of my favorite things, and this is, I don't know how many American families really do this. Maybe it's an ethnic thing. But as you're cleaning up after that, you leave a little room when you're done with a meal, so that as you're cleaning things up, you can nosh in the kitchen.
I love that.
That's one of my favorite
things. Any opportunity.
As long as you're not picking the cannoli out of the garbage, as Seinfeld
I have to tell you this
episode showed us.
Because I actually saw a chef do this once. I was in Washington, D.C., and there was this elderly French gentleman, and I felt empathy for him because it was quite obvious to me that he had been around in the business for a long, long time, and here he was cooking at we'll call it a high-end deli, and he had to be in his 70s. And he was telling me these stories about that basically indicated that he couldn't give up his personality enough to fit into the customer service oriented food world that most of us expect when we frequent a restaurant.
Yeah.
So for example, he was a chef at a high-end place, I forgot what city now, and a woman wanted a particular chicken dish on the menu, but she wanted to have it without 2 or 3 ingredients that were in the preparation.
That he was very fond of and thought.
And, well, not only that he was fond of, but that actually needed to be in the dish for it to work properly. So instead of what probably a lot of people would do is say, sure, I'll do that.
Right.
Instead of doing that, he said, no. There are 4 chicken dishes on the menu. He told his waiter. There are 4 chicken dishes on the menu. Tell her to.
Choose one.
Choose a different one.
Right.
Woman insisted. Waiter came back in. He said, no, I won't do it. The waiter went back out. He said, explain to her. It doesn't work properly without these ingredients. Woman said to the waiter, that's the way I want it. I'm paying. So he made it. What happened? She didn't like it. He came out and just chewed her, out. And I think that was probably the last day on that job. Anyway,
she sent back the proverbial steak.
Right.
Right. Wow.
And well, that's a funny story that you just reminded me of. I got
go to.
Well, I'll tell you after this one. Anyway, so he
still salivating.
He wasn't, he just wasn't cut out to fit in with the customer always knows best, right? He just wasn't there. So anyway, I was at this demo that I was doing a number of years ago in Washington, D.C. at this high-end deli, and I noticed that he was looking through the trash, and he found several sprigs of rosemary that somebody had thrown away. And literally, he didn't wash them. He just stuffed them into some bird that he was... Oh. And I don't know whether that was his way of getting back at people, because it was like this French attitude, like the lady on the subway in Paris where I said, I love Paris, I love the people, they're so sweet. And she said, no, we're not.
Nice.
Anyway,
we could go further with that, but we'll stop right there to be nice.
But this other story was something that I actually read in a book. It's a great book. It's called Heat. And it's about by Bill Buford. And Buford was a journalist who actually started to work as a chef. He wanted to learn how to be a chef, and he got to cook in Mario Batali's kitchen at Babbo in New York.
Okay, nice.
And one of the things that he learned was that there are a lot of crazy things that happen in the kitchen.
As we've been seeing on all of these Iron Chef shows, we're going to get into that in a second.
But one thing that happened that he relates in the book, which was interesting, is that this one time when Batali was actually in the kitchen, because he maybe was at the beginning, but as he became bigger and bigger, he was there less frequently. He had lots of other restaurants, lots of other restaurants. Right. Anyway, he was there in the kitchen one night when this waiter came in and said that this woman sent back her steak. It wasn't cooked properly. So they fixed it again and sent it back out. She sends it back again. Fixed it again. Third time the steak comes back. And Batali, as it's going out the door, he says to the waiter, he said, tell him not to come back. So then he all of a sudden, he turns around, goes back out, grabs the waiter. He said, what are they drinking? And the guy says they're drinking whatever it is, some particular wine that's $495 a bottle. And they're on their second one already. Batali says, they can have anything they want.
There you go. When it gets right down there, brass tacks. Yeah.
Anything they want.
Yep. Let's talk about the, we were about to go there a second ago, which is the Iron Chef and shows like that. What do you think when you watch those shows?
I usually don't watch them.
Okay. What do you think of the concept of them?
I do have.
I mean, one of them is an abusive show. Another one is.
I'm not really being. I don't want to think that anyone to think that I'm above watching those types of shows. There are a couple of shows that really I do enjoy on.
NCIS?
Like the food. Actually, the food shows. I mean, like the Food Network. My favorite Food Network show is Chopped. I love Chopped because it's a very concentrated 1 hour of cooking 3 different courses. Yeah. And I think it's real in your face, and I learn a lot from watching that. Right. Because there's several people that I can see how they're responding to these different ingredients that they're given. Yeah. And it's fascinating to watch, and I've learned a lot about layering flavors and a lot about watching people under pressure too to see what happens.
By the way, I don't mean to interrupt, but speaking of people under pressure, in case you've just joined us, we're talking with Steve Boss, Captain Cuisine. We're going to nickname you for the show. He has a show called Great Taste. It's broadcast on solar-powered Crew FM, which is a 100.1 on your FM dial, whatever that is. And also it ends up on the internet as an archive eventually. Your shows as archives are wonderful, too, because you talk about the recipes and all that. So there's a lot of useful information. But also, Steve has taken the show to Hy-Vees. And we're probably going to end up doing something in the near future on FMC, which is the old FPAC, but now it's FMC, Fairfield Media Center. So there may be a show in the future, the broadcast, at the very least, the broadcasts that are coming from Hy-Vee, where Steve would host. I really interrupted you to bad spot there.
Oh,
Sorry.
so the Food Network shows. I think they're great. It's a couple of interesting things about Food Network. One of the things is that Food Network has spawned, I didn't say spurned, spawned the non-cook couch potato syndrome.
Oh.
So there are quite a few people, I don't even remember what the numbers are now, but it's a very huge percentage of people who watch Food Network don't cook, which is fascinating to me. Food Network has changed over the years. At the beginning, Food Network was really a how-to network, where you learned how to boil water was one of the shows, which was for beginning cooks. And they were all instructionally oriented. Now they're all showbiz. Yeah. Basically. Yeah. And so I think they've lost a lot of substance, but obviously they did it because they had to make money and
get the numbers up.
Right. And it wasn't exciting enough for people to sit there and watch a guy show you how to cook an egg.
Much like this show. I mean, I think what we're going to have to do in the future, Jason, if you don't mind, we're going to actually, in the future, we're going to have to get a stove here.
Right.
When Steve comes back. I'm just saying. Okay.
Good idea. And so anyway, Food Network, some of the shows that I really do enjoy are Chopped is one of them. And the other one I really like is Restaurant Impossible. Which,
love it.
Where Robert Irvine goes in and he tries to save this restaurant. And by the way, there was an article in the New York Times this week about that show in the New York Times dining section. And it talks a little bit about some from the restaurant owner's standpoints, what their experience was when he came in there and since he's left. It's very fascinating. But,
I imagine he costs a pretty penny. Talk about an incentive also. He's saving a restaurant.
Yes, saving a restaurant in terms of the restaurant doesn't have to pay anything because they're just, it's just like any other reality show.
Right.
They're filling out an application. Why should my failing restaurant be on your show?
Exactly. It's funny. It's like a mixed blessing. You're letting the world know that your restaurant is a mess, and then on the other hand, you're actually having somebody come in here and help change it.
I got a kick out of this one guy. This restaurant's in St. Louis. And Irvine changed it. They were serving all frozen foods and everything, and he changed it to all fresh things. And this guy he says right in the article, he goes, oh, well, we had to bring the frozen cannelloni back because our customers wanted it. And I'm sitting there going, but you didn't have any customers because you were failing.
That's right.
Why would you care?
Liar. Right. It's funny.
It's like so bizarre. But I think that Food Network is great, and there's other, Travel Channel has some shows. Anthony Bourdain, who has been on the Travel Channel with his show No Reservations for the last few years. He just signed a deal with CNN. He's going to have his own show on CNN. So food has become a really big thing, and I think that the growing awareness of food is terrific for improved health of people.
Right.
I think that it's even though we have such a plethora of
philosophies of how to eat.
Yeah. I still think that this growing food awareness is a really good thing for people, and I think that for us as Americans, one of the most important elements that we can take from looking at Food Network shows is what's it really all about. And what it's really all about is taking the pleasure of the table and the food and turning that experience into something that is always joyous. It used to be that families ate together.
Right.
It's a long time ago. Probably most people of this generation and the generation just below us don't even have any memories like that because both their mother and father were probably working or even if they weren't working, the TV was blasting. Or,
that's right.
I mean, that started happening. It started happening when we were growing up, right? Yeah, TV trays came out. Everybody was like,
dinners.
Oh my God, TV dinners and TV trays. Whoa, what's the world? This is like an amazing world that we live in, right? Yeah. High tech. And, the Green Giant frozen packages of stuff you just put in there.
And then Stouffer's. Stouffer's changed the rules.
Macaroni and cheese.
The best.
But the truth is, make your own macaroni and cheese.
Yeah, it takes.
It's going to be unbelievable compared to Stouffer's, and I can teach you how to do it in just
Stouffer's
a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
And make your own fried chicken or whatever it is, whatever the dish is. But I do think that all these different food things that are going on, the fact that there's a cult of personality around chefs now, just like great basketball players or anything like that.
Yeah,
I think it's all
sports.
I think it's all good because I think eventually it leads to more and more awareness about what's healthy and what it's a good lifestyle in terms of eating and that type of thing.
There's so many questions I wanted to. There were so many things I could field right now, but one of the things, speaking of sports, but the one thing I want to ask you is that there's been a great move recently as far as eating locally grown food. Mm-hmm. Do you have a dog in that fight?
Do I?
Mm-hmm. How do you feel about that?
I feel like it's a great idea to eat fresh food.
Right, it's a great idea to eat fresh food, but local versus, for instance, when you're going to the, we won't go Hy-Vee, but when you're going to a store and you're picking vegetables for your next meal, do you go to you have three choices, I guess. You have organic, which is just generic organic that they ship in from wherever. Then you have, well, wherever they're, and then just something that's not organic that they're shipping in from wherever, and then you have locally grown food. And then I guess the subdivisions there would be organic or non-organic.
frozen food, and you have canned food.
And you have frozen food, but I'm assuming, although let's throw that out there too. Are do you consider the whole gamut when you're going shopping?
I think you have to look at, the food economy is very complex. I think that for economic purposes and for health purposes, it's simple to say, try to buy as much local food as you possibly can, because you're helping your local economy,
right,
and you're getting the freshest product that you're going to put on your plate. Those two things together are huge benefits.
Yeah.
Now, the other things that you have to consider are exactly how is that food, I mean, you can go way beyond that. How is that food grown? Then you can get into the organic, the sustainable, the genetically modified. I mean, there's so many different levels that you can get into.
Yeah.
For me, I would like to boil it down to something very simple. If possible, know your supplier. If possible, know your supplier.
Right.
You can go to the farmer's market. You can become friends with people who grow locally grown food.
Right.
They even, now, our farmer's market has a certificate that they inspect farms, and they give them a certificate to display at their table which says this food is certified locally grown. That's terrific. So get to know your farmer. I just got some wonderful sweet corn today. That's one of our local farmers grows.
Nice.
So this to me is one of the most important principles is support your local food economy,
right,
and make yourself healthier by buying local if possible. Now, where I start to diverge from that is people who are obsessed with buying local.
Here we go. Okay.
And it's just, I only eat foods that are grown within 100 miles of where I live, because of all the different environmental impacts and this and that.
Right.
Well, I applaud them. That's terrific.
Yeah.
At the same time, there are many different groups of people all over the world whose livelihoods depend on my buying their food product.
Right.
Because they are involved in maintaining the traditions where they've come from, whether it's in Trapani, where they're harvesting salt from the sea still by hand.
Yeah, beautiful. Nice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or whether it's in Modena, Italy, where they're making balsamic vinegar that has to sit in casks for 25 years before anybody even tastes it. Hello, how much of an investment is that, right?
Or
whether it's
olive oil.
Exactly. Certainly, you can get great olive oil. There are some good olive oils, not many, but some good olive oils in California.
Right.
But there are great olive oils from Spain, great olive oils from Italy. And don't those people deserve to make money too? Don't they deserve, it's like...
It's a world economy.
And don't we get... And it's a world... Right. It's a world economy. It's a world culture. It's a world family. It's like all of these people... So it's a very complex question, actually, and I kind of try to stay, I would say, calm about it, right?
It's like, and of course, the agitating question then would be, and Jimmy Moore was going to be on today's show. Jimmy Moore, who's the station manager of Solar Powered Crew FM, which is at 100. But he was going to be here today, and
right.
It would have come up. I don't even have to say. It begins with G. And it ends in O. That subject would have probably come up. GMO.
GMO, right.
Now it's a scary issue for a lot of people, and most people don't even I don't think most people understand what the.
Well, I don't think any of us understand it.
Yeah,
I don't think any of us even understand what the consequences may or may not be. I don't think the scientists understand what the consequences may or may not be.
Right.
And to me, that's enough to say, I think I'll make my choice to not eat those types of foods.
Right. So it's sort of like, okay, play it safe for the moment. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's the same thing. The Green Revolution was supposed to solve all the world's food problems. Well, what was the Green Revolution? It's not what people think. The Green Revolution isn't growing more spinach. It's using pesticides. That was the Green Revolution. The Green Revolution was to expand. Was to use pesticides to, eradicate bugs and pests and therefore have lots more food.
Right.
Well, what happens? What happened? I think that I think it would be very difficult for anyone to make a case today that there aren't some deleterious benefits or deleterious effects, sorry, from utilizing chemicals and herbicides and fungicides on food products. Deleterious to the health of the humans who consume them, and deleterious to the people who actually are in contact with them. I think that it's the same story, in my opinion, as the cigarette companies for years and years and years denying, even though they knew that cigarette smoking was dangerous to your health. And it's the same with the chemical agriculture today. You know, I'm sure there are some benefits to it, maybe if used in moderation in certain places. But what we've done is we've created essentially another monster where Monsanto has said, hey, look, we can make these seeds and we can make the pesticide for you, Roundup, and you can spray as much Roundup as you want on these seeds because they don't have any problem with that, right? They don't have any problem with that. And by the way, you know, you have to buy those seeds from us, and you have to buy the pesticide from us, and you can't save the seed either, by the way. Right. You know, you have to buy it again from us, right. And it becomes a very closed system. Yeah,
and we also can't buy the dirt from them. So, I mean, we're affecting the water table. We're affecting
there are so many environmental impacts that we don't realize, and the unfortunate thing is that
we can buy the dirt from them, actually, right? Yeah, bags of soil.
Yeah, I mean, the unfortunate thing is that most of us, or many of us, are motivated solely by economic reasons,
right?
And therefore, even if we know that it's not necessarily good, then I'm gonna tell a story that's really quick that's important because I think it really plays into this whole thing. This is from the Jewish Midrash, and the collection of, we'll call them, you know, learning situations, fables, not fables, but just stories. And so there was an elderly gentleman, he was in his 70s, or he was in his 80s, I think, and he got some carob seeds and he planted some carob trees in his yard. And his neighbor said, why are you doing that? You're going to be dead in a few years. It takes 70 years for a carob tree to mature. He said, I'm doing it for my grandchildren.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Well, that's the same as us. We're stewards. Yeah. We're stewards for the next generation. I'm getting emotional now. Stewards for the next generation, the generation after that. You know, we have to think that way. We can't continue to think, you know, with blinders on. And so I think that if people really, the hope that I have for everyone when it comes to food is this. I used to do demos when I imported food from Italy from small artisan producers many years ago. And I can tell you without a doubt that there was only one person in all the demos that I did who didn't respond when when I gave them a taste of, this is what real olive oil tastes like, or this is what a real sun-dried tomato tastes like, not these desiccated machine things that are put into some kind of terrible oil and you think they're really good. Yeah. You know, when I gave people tastes of these products, the normal reaction, and this is exactly what they would say, oh, is this what olive oil is supposed to taste like?
I love that.
You know, and there was only one person in all the times I did demos that was like, huh? What? Who was clueless? So that has always given me tremendous optimism for people in terms of their ability to recognize what's really good and what isn't, if they have the time,
right?
If they're willing to take the time, and if you can educate them, present the information to them.
Beautiful.
So I think this is a really wonderful thing about all the greater food awareness that's going on today.
Nice. Speaking of food awareness. By the way, we are talking with Steve Boss for another few minutes. Steve Boss having the show Great Taste on solar-powered Crew FM, and also, I just noticed right now you're wearing a crew shirt. That's funny. Shirt. I should have worn the crew shirt today. We are now having the show on.
We're live from High V.
Performed live from High V, and let's do a lightning round. Let's do a lightning round as far as we have all these. I bought all of these books.
Can I interrupt you for just 1 minute?
Yeah,
I just guess I did.
Yeah.
I just want to say, because I don't know how many people know about your show, and so I'd just like to say that Mike. First of all, you've got to listen to Crew. If you don't listen to Crew, you're missing something, because there are so many diverse programs on Crew. My father has said that he's never experienced a radio station that has as much diverse programming as Crew. Some of it you're going to like, some of it you're going to hate. Well, listen to what you like. You don't have to listen to stuff that you don't like. But Mike has a show that is, we're in Fairfield, Iowa, for crying out loud. We have 10,000 people. This show should be on Sirius. This show should be done out of New York or Los Angeles. I mean, he interviews all of the top musicians in the world on that show, and it's done right here from Fairfield. So make sure you listen to Mike Rigoni's 2.0. We have mutual admiration. Okay.
We do.
Go ahead, buddy. Go ahead.
All right. I lightning round. Thank you very much, Steve. And it is a mutual admiration society. We could talk about that another time as far as.
Do you need me to call serious? Or?
I think you do. I think I do. You need to call for the food. No, I enjoy doing it for Fairfield. This is my home, and this is Fairfield 2.0 after all. Now, lightning round. All
yes.
right. For 50 cents each or 3 for $1, I don't remember what it was. I bought a whole bunch of culinary books, of cooking books, cookbooks. I bought, for instance, The Cook's Companion. I bought a book on vegetables with my favorite vegetable other than eggplant, which is asparagus, on the front cover. I also bought 565 ways to cook pasta. You would think it would be genetically, in my system because I'm Italian, but no, you need to learn these things. Something I would have definitely needed: good, cheap food.
Right.
The reason why I have to tell you, I want to share, and the salad book, something I don't do enough of actually. I have to say, a salad I'm a little weak with. But what I was going to say, and the good cheap book, good cheap food rather book. I was going through a period where I was looking into adoption and foster care, and I thought, there's so much I really don't know how to cook. I'd better dive right in there. But out of all of the books that I got for 30 cents or whatever, now it's starting to go down. The New York Times cookbook is one of those good books that
this is a classic that anyone who is interested in food should have in their library, by Craig Claiborne, who probably is still the most famous critic that ever wrote for the Times, and one of the classic chefs of our era. And so for 50 cents or 30, whatever.
I think it was a 3 for $1.
Yeah,
I think it was 3 for $1.
You did very well. The one thing I would say to people, when it comes to recipes, is use recipes as guidelines. Have fun, enjoy yourself. A lot of people get stuck when they use recipes. They're like, I have to do, and use them as guidelines. One exception: baking does require you to really follow the recipes when you're making desserts, that type of thing, because it's much more important. But for regular foods, lunch, dinner items, breakfast, just have fun.
Nice. We should end the show right there, but I had one more question I wanted to ask you, which is, without thinking, and just real quick, what's your favorite dish on the planet? It's hard, isn't it?
It's impossible.
Okay, so that's how we'll end it. Steve, this has been really a joy. I've loved having you on Fairfield 2.0, but we got to maybe either get you your own show, or in the very least, broadcast those shows from Hy-Vee.
Yeah, that'd be great.
That's an amazing thing. Thank you, Fairfield, for checking out the show. We'll have another exciting episode another day, probably with some music, and I again really appreciate this, and you've got to come back.
Appreciate it.
All right, take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.